We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph from Meseches Yoma. This is Yoma Daf 54a. The Gemara here is in the middle of dealing with a contradiction within Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says on the previous Amud, he said that the Aron was exiled to Bavel. And the Gemara says this actually argues with a statement from Ula that Ula had in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And then it quotes this whole conversation. Rav Masya ben Choresh, he asked Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Eliezer says that the Aron was exiled to Bavel. He brought a pasuk before in the previous Amud, and now he's in the middle of bringing a second pasuk, Kol Hadara. It says it left Tzion all of its splendor. And my Kol Hadara, what does it mean, all of its splendor? Chadara refers to the room, meaning the item which is hidden away in the private room in the Kodesh Kadashim. This is a second pasuk that shows that the Aron was exiled to Bavel. So now the question continues, is posed to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, Ata, my Ata Omer, you, what do you say about the Aron? Amar lo, so he said to him, Shani Omer, I say Aron b'mekomo nignas. The Aron was hidden away in its place. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Vayarichu habadim v'gomer. Same pasuk we quoted before. So in any case, you see here that according to Ula, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai holds the Aron was hidden away in its place, and that's different than what we quoted before in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that it was exiled to Bavel. And the Gemara says, Amar le Rabba Ula, Rabba said to Ula, my mashma. What do you see from this pasuk? Where does this pasuk say anything about the fact that it is hidden away in its place? Because the pasuk over there says, Vayu sham ad hayom hazeh. It says it's there until this day, which really means that the Aron is there forever. It's always in the place of the Beis HaMikdash. It's just hidden away. Gemara says, is that really true? Is it really true that any time the pasuk uses the words la'olam hazeh, it means forever? But the pasuk says, V'hayevusi yoshev Yerushalayim. It says the Yevusi who lived in Yerushalayim, lahorishu b'nei Binyamin, v'yeshev hayevusi as b'nei Binyamin b'Yerushalayim ad hayom hazeh. It says the Yevusi lived in Yerushalayim until this day. Hachanami delo gala. Do you really think that means they were never exiled? It means literally forever. V'atanya, but we learned in a brayser, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Chamishim ushtayim shana was for 52 years. Lo avar ish Yehuda. There was no one in the area of Yehuda. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Alehari mesa bechiyun v'nehi v'alneos midbar kino kinitzu mibliish. Over, there's no people passing. V'lo shamu kol mikne me'of hashamayim ve'ad behema nadadu halachu. Nothing there from the birds to the animals. It was completely cleared out. So you see that it couldn't have been that the Yevusi were there forever. And the Gemara says, behema begematria. The word behema in gematria is chamshin ushtayim have. It is 52 years. That's the idea that there was an exile for 52 years. And further, V'tanya, we learned in a brayser, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, Sheva shonim niskayim agofris v'melach be'eretz Yisrael. For 7 years, Eretz Yisrael was filled with brimstone and salt, meaning it was totally desolate. V'yamar Rabbi Yochanan says, my time under Rabbi Yossi. What's the reason of Rabbi Yossi? Where does he get this idea that it's a 7 year issue? Asya bris. That comes from a Gzera Shava, from the word bris. Ksivach, it says over here, V'higbir bris larabim shavua echad, has the word bris, and it talks about shavua echad. Shavua echad meaning one Shemitah cycle, one set of 7 years. Uchsiv hasam, and it says over there, V'yamru al asher azvu es bris Hashem elokei avosam, because they left the covenant of God that has to do with the exile. So you see an exile of 7 years. So in any case, the question is, you see clearly ad hayom hazeh does not mean forever, because the Yevusi were not there forever. They were in exile because everyone was exiled. So Amar le, so he said to him, Hacha ksiv sham. Over here it says the word sham. If it says vayu sham ad hayom hazeh, that means forever. Hasam lo ksiv sham, but over there it doesn't say sham. If it doesn't say the word sham, it doesn't necessarily mean forever. Gemara says, is that true? V'chol heichad ksiv sham li'olamu. Anytime it says the word sham, it means forever. So we have another question. It says in the pasuk, mehem min bnei Shimon halchul har seir, anashim chamesh meos uflatio v'na'arya v'rafia v'uziel bnei yishi b'rosham. All these various people who went to Har Seir, Vayakva Sheres HaPleita LaAmalek, they wiped out, they killed the remnant of Amalek. Vayeshvu Sham ad hayom hazeh. It says they were there until this day. So that's Sham, seems to be forever. But yet the Gemara continues, Uchvar ola Sancheriv melech Asher. Already Sancheriv, the king of Asher, came up, Uvil kol ha'aratzos. He mixed up all of the nations, meaning everyone was exiled. So even though it says over here the Bnei Shimon, they were there ad hayom hazeh, can't be forever. And how do we know that Sancheriv mixed up all the nations? Shenemar, like the pasuk says, V'asir gevulos amim. He removed the bounds of the nations. They've been all mixed up. V'asudoseim shosati. That means that he plundered all of their treasures. He robbed all of their treasures. So in any case, the Gemara says, you're right, Tiyufta, that is indeed a refutation, just because it says ad hayom hazeh, even if it says sham ad hayom hazeh, it does not necessarily mean forever. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Nachman says, Tana was taught, that The Chachamim say that the Aron is hidden away in the chamber where they keep the wood. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Afa no nami tanina. We learn like this in a Mishnah as well. The Mishnah says, Ma'isa b'kohen echad shoy mesasek v'ro ritzba meshuna mechav roseh. There was a story where a certain Kohen saw that one of the tiles on the floor was different than the neighboring tiles. Uvav hodias chaver, so he went to tell his friend, v'lo hispik ligmor sadavar at sheyotzta nishmas. He wasn't able to finish even relating it until he died. V'yedu b'yichud sheshamar and gunners. They knew for sure that's where the Aron was hidden away. My Hav, what was this Kohen doing? Amar Rabbi Chelbo says, Mesasek b'karduma haya, he was dealing with his axe. Taught Rabbi Shmuel, it was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel, Shnei Kohanim bali mumen hayu masliin be'etzim. There were two Kohanim who had blemishes, who were dealing with the wood. They had to inspect the wood to see which wood had worms in it and could not be used, and which wood could be used. Menishmata karduma shalechad mehem, and one of them, their axe slipped. Menafla sham, it fell over there, the area where the Aron was. V'yotzta eish v'achalaso, and a fire came out and consumed them again. The area where it was hidden was therefore kept secret. And Rashi over here points out, Masli and Be'etzim, the Tanan we learned in the Mishnah, Kalaitz sheyesh bo tolas pasal mizbeach. If wood has worms in it, it's not good for the mizbeach. And Bali Mumin, these were Kohanim who had blemishes, she'ein ru'uyin la'avoda acheres. There's no other avoda they can do, so this is what they were doing. They were inspecting the wood. And the Gemara continues, Rav Yehuda Rami, Rav Yehuda said the following contradiction in Psukim. Ksiv, one pasuk says, Vayiru Roshei Habadim. You could see the heads of the poles, meaning you could see from the Kodesh the poles of the Aron. But it also says in the pasuk, V'lo ye'ra chutza. You couldn't see them from the outside. So could you see the poles of the Aron or not? Haketzad, how so? Nirin ve'ein nirin. They were visible, but they were sort of not visible, as we're going to explain. Tanya nami hachi, we have a brayso like this as well. Vayiru Roshei Habadim. They were able to be seen. Yachol lo yu zazim mimakoman. I might think that they didn't move from their place, meaning maybe they didn't protrude. Talmud lomar vayarichu abadim. It says they were lengthy. They did. So yachol yuhu mekarin beparochas v'yotzin. Maybe they tore through the curtain and you could actually see them on the other side. Talmud lomar v'lo yeru achutza. It says that you couldn't see them from the outside. So haketzad haso dochkin uboltin v'yotzin beparochas. They jutted out into the paroches. You could just see their shape, but you couldn't actually see the poles. V'nir and kashnei dode isha. They appeared like the two breasts of a woman, meaning the outline, the form, took such a shape. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Shor hamor dodi li bein shadai yolin. It says, but bein shadai yolin, you rest between my breasts. That's the idea over here. That was the appearance. That was the form that it took. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Katina says, B'shah shahayu Yisrael olun l'regel. At the time the Klal Yisrael would go up for the holidays to visit the Beis HaMikdash, megalalim lohemes haparoches, they would roll back the paroches, umarin lohemes hakruvim, and they showed Klal Yisrael the kruvim, shahayu meurim zeh b'zeh, that they were clinging to one another. V'yomrim lahem, and they would say to them, to Klal Yisrael, ruuchi ba'aschem lifnei hamakom, see how beloved you are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kechiba zocher and nekeva, like the love between a male and a female. Meseches Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda asked the following, how could this be that they showed them the kruvim? But the pasuk says, "V'lo yavo liros kevales hakodesh." It says that when they used to travel in the wilderness, they would have to wrap up all the holy vessels because you couldn't see them. If you would see them, then you would die. V'yomer Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, and Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rab, b'shas achnosas kelim lenartik shalahem. This is talking about at the time that they would take the kelim of the Beis HaMikdash and put it inside the coverings of these various kelim. Again, the idea is you're not supposed to look at it. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Nachman says, Mashal lekala, it's a mashal to a bride. As long as she's in the house of her father, she's modest from her husband. When she comes to the house of her father-in-law, she doesn't have the same kind of modesty from her husband, meaning she's more comfortable. So it's the same thing over here. In the wilderness, so there's a certain amount of modesty. You're not supposed to see the kelim of the Beis HaMikdash. But once the Shechina is in the Beis HaMikdash itself, so then it's already a different story. We are more comfortable, so to speak, with the Shechina, and it's not a problem to see that. Meseches Rav Chana bar Rav Katina. So Rav Chana bar Rav Katina asks, we had a story just now when the certain Kohen saw the tile in the floor, saw the area of the Aron, and he died. So he said, Amar Lei said to him, Nisgar Shoka Amrit. In that case, you're talking about a situation where they're already divorced. Rashi over here says, Nisgar Shoka Amrit, Hai Maisu Bevayis Sheni Hava. That story took place in the second Beis HaMikdash. La'achar shenisgarshu. There was already a divorce, so to speak. They go back to the first kind of original love. let's chilas chibasim, when they first got engaged, so to speak, at the beginning of their love, she'ein gasen zeh bazeh, they're not as comfortable with each other anymore. In the second Beis HaMikdash, it already is a problem. That's what the Gemara over here says. Again, niskar sheklamar, you're talking about divorced, meaning the second Beis HaMikdash. Niskar shu chazru lechibasa harishona. Once there's a divorce, once you're in the second Beis HaMikdash, it's not as comfortable. It's like the original love, and therefore, again, there's more of a modesty. So the Gemara now asks, b'may askinan, what exactly is the case over here? Inema b'mikdash rishon, if we're talking about in the first Beis HaMikdash, mi havoi paroches, there wasn't a paroches that separated the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim, it was the Amatraxin. It was a wall that was built over there. So what paroches did they roll back? So the Gemara says, Ela b'mikdash sheni. Rather, we're talking about in the second Beis HaMikdash, but that's also a problem. Mi have kruvim, are there any kruvim? Again, we did not have the kruvim that was only in the first Beis HaMikdash. As Rashi says, mi have kruvim, the kasalka daitach, bekruvim she'asa Shlomo eitzel ha'aron, mizeh kamer. We think we're talking about the kruvim that Shlomo HaMelech made by the Aron. That was something specifically for the first Beis HaMikdash. So what exactly are we talking about? So the Gemara answers, Liolam b'mikdash rishon. Really, we're talking about the first Beis HaMikdash. Umay paroches, what curtains are we talking about? Paroches debavi. We're talking about rolling back the curtains that were just the general curtains of the gates. We're not talking about the curtain that separated the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim. There are other curtains in the Beis HaMikdash. Damer Rabbi Zera Amarav, because Rabbi Zera said in the name of Rav, Shlosha Asar Parochos Hayu b'mikdash. There were 13 curtains in the Beis HaMikdash. Shiva Keneged Shiva Sha'arim, 7 corresponding to the 7 gates. Shtayim, and then there were 2 achas lepischo shel heichel. One was for the entrance of the heichel. The achas lepischo shel ulam. One was for the entrance of the entrance hall. Shtayim b'dvir. There were 2 other curtains by the dvir. That's the separating area between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kodashim. Ushtayim kenegdon bali, and there were 2 other curtains in that same area by the dvir, but up on the upper floor of the Beis HaMikdash. And Rashi over here explains, Shalosh Esrei Parochas Hayu b'mikdash sheni. This statement is specifically about the Mikdash Sheni, that there were 13 curtains, Shiva l'Shiva Shari Hazara, Shtayim b'dvir b'makom ha'matraxin, Ushtayim kenegdon l'chutz bein aliyas ha'echol le'aliyas beis kodshei ha'kodashim. Again, that's the description of the various curtains. V'chi heichi b'mikdash sheni hayu parochos keneged ha'psachim. Rashi says, just like in the second Beis HaMikdash, there were curtains by the various entrances, Hachanami b'mikdash rishon, the same thing we can assume in the Mikdash Rishon, and that's the curtains that they're talking about when they're talking about rolling back the curtains to see inside the Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara now gives a second answer. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Omer, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, Li'olam b'mikdash sheni. Really, we're talking about the second Beis HaMikdash. So the problem is, again, you didn't have the kruvim in the second Beis HaMikdash, so what were they showing the people? And the Gemara says, Uchruvim ditzur sahavakaimi. There were kruvim that were carved onto the walls. They were designed onto the walls of the Beis HaMikdash. The chsiv, like the pasuk says, we'll read the full psukim over here. V'yes kol kiros habayis mesav kol pituchim miklos, kruvim v'simoros ufturei tzitzim milefnim lachitzon, v'kol kruvim v'simoros ufturei tzitzim v'tzipazav miyushar al-mechuka, all talking about the designs of kruvim that were in the Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara here continues, the chsiv in the pasuk also says, Kemar ish v'loyos, that it was made according to the space of each one, and loyos. And the Gemara says, my Kemar ish v'loyos, what exactly does that pasuk mean? And the Gemara says, Amar Rav bar Rav Shila, Rav bar Rav Shila says, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nandalid Amud Beis.